My name's Jordan, Teresa Garcia.
My name is Kenya Morales.
My name is Miriam Mimi Madrid.
My name is Guadalupe Vargas.
My name is Indra Lucero.
My name is Hilary Hill-Insing.
My name is JC Montoya Price.
My name is Seth Donovan. My name is Jane Foistel.
I became involved with Loose because I went to the gathering, the Southwest Regional Gathering in Tucson, Arizona, and I believe it was Choice USA, the National Latina Reproductive Health Institute, and the Third Way Foundation brought together young leaders for leadership training.
So we broke into state caucuses, and in Colorado we decided in that gathering to meet I think it was a few months later, back in Denver, and knew that we wanted to carry what we had created there that weekend into something more permanent.
They kind of all wanted us to go back home and create a new reproductive justice organization, and we all thought that was a little bit crazy, and that instead we'd really like to bolster the reproductive justice work that we did in our own organizations. And so with that, we just formed a small group of people that we called Loose, and we were like, we're going to be not a new organization, we're going to be a think tank.
So I think, when you say loose, some people think you mean loose, like L-O-O-S-E, and I think it's really appropriate because it actually came from someone saying we want to have a loose structure. We don't want to have a hierarchy. We don't want to have like a chairperson and a vice chair and a secretary and a treasurer. We don't want to adopt those kind of typical formal models. And so we really call it a shared leadership model in that we rotate those kind of responsibilities or leadership roles like facilitation or skills sharing. We have people step up when they're able, but also have a nice ebb and flow where people can step back.
We are a group that we come from different backgrounds. We're transgender people of color, we're youth. Some of us work strictly with reproductive justice. Others work in medical fields. Some of us have PhDs. Some of us just graduated high school. Some of us are still college students. I think we're pretty cool.
Well, I was not part of the official manifesto writing team, but we sort of handed that team a list of things that we felt were really important or distinctive about us as Loose. And then that team took that and I think worked it into this amazing, not just metaphor, it's more than a metaphor, but expressed it in an amazing way through sort of this idea of light and the way light plays out in the world.
So I think the manifesta, or the Femifesta, is a beautiful piece of work, and I think it also sets us apart from kind of a nonprofit, like run-of-the-mill structure, more mainstream structure, because it's almost like a poem. And I think that's actually what stands out to me, is that it's beautiful to read, it's beautiful to look at, and it's unique. It's unique because it's not mission, vision, goals, objectives. It's more like it's a statement. It's a Femifesta.
I think just inherently we're battling those things that are in our society that just by our structure, we're battling sexism, we're battling patriarchy, we're battling all these power dynamics and all these isms that occur in our society. We're battling those by the way that we organize. We are the change that we want to see, right?
I think Loose organizes itself in that way because we're recognizing the importance of us all having different roles. We recognize that certain roles need to be present in our work, but also that always having them housed in the same person is what oftentimes leads us to burnout. I think we also organize ourselves in that way in order to do some leadership development and give us a space that we could practice what living in the world looks like but in a space that feels a little more contained.
So the Loose Reproductive Justice Think Tank holds monthly skill shares, and they're very informal and very laid back, and it ends up looking like a Saturday morning often at someone's house. So say Kenya's house, myself, right? And so we'll make food, different people agree to bring champagne or mimosas, other people bring breakfast burritos or, you know, whatever. And then really kind of just taking a place in a living room or a backyard or wherever, and people just talking, you know, there's usually some sort of agenda, some short agenda items and some longer ones, but really dedicating time to doing a skill share. So we've had skill shares on media justice. We've had skill shares on kind of what an abortion actually is and what is the procedure, right? We've had, you know, transgender justice 101s and stuff like that. And so we have those skill shares that we really focus on having every person who's a part of the think tank really take something on.
Well, I see Loose fitting into the reproductive justice movement as a think tank, in that, not that we have to be like, you know, policy people or do think tank things in a traditional kind of way, but think tank in terms of being a place where, you know, good thinking can take place.
Loose and the work this does is such an important catalyst for things that are happening in the reproductive justice movement right now, especially Loose's focus on autonomy and, you know, fluid sexuality. I think there's two things right now in the reproductive justice movement as a whole that are really, really important. And I think it's so important to have an organization that is looking, doing reproductive justice work from the viewpoint of people of color. And as someone who's white identified, I feel like that's something that's really important to support, because it shouldn't be a movement that's simply led by white middle class folks. You know, everyone should have a voice.
Where I see Loose going is the space that is dedicated to young, you know, queer, trans, and women of color, and our allies. I really see it as a space where we share skills and we put our skills we've learned to test, you know, to the back to the community. I see it as a space that continues to be informal, that continues to be organic and raw, you know, where people can bring their whole selves. I would hate to see that part of Loose really go. I would love to see the Loose Reproductive Justice think tank evolve into a model that folks around the country and around the world can use, right? In cultures where there's such a mixture of experiences and values, I would love to see it in.
Loose has given me very tangible reasons to continue to believe and to hope that new ways are different, and that we do not have to continue to live by the systems or the rules or the relationships that we've been handed. You know, I think it's interesting that we've sort of been handed the consequences of big systems and big oppression and, you know, things, you know, racism and the isms, and we suffer the consequences of those things in our individual relationships. And so at the same time that we reject those things and figure out what it means to resist, it also seems in Loose that we are figuring out what something different will look like. And that's an amazing piece of my hope for moving forward in this work. I believe we have to have something besides resistance. We have to have something new and something to replace the structures that we are throwing out.
and shine, wiping the crust out my shut eyes. But the vibe wasn't exactly right at first. I sighed, thinking of why it was as I discussed the kind of frustration within myself. As far as I can tell, my mind can dwell in a different realm. Is this for real?